Storm. Hello everyone, Tactical Lich here, and welcome to the Tides of Torment multiplayer battle. Today we have a submission from Tzeentch playing as the treacherous Tzeentch army, going to summon Sea Lord Aislinn and face off their own High Elf brethren, as Anti-Kaiju here playing as a High Elf army. Now, for the Tzeentch army build here, other than Changeling into Aislinn, he also have a bunch of single entity support with the Exalted Flamer with the Vortex Firestorm effect, Chaos Saucer of Tzeentch with Searing Doom and Final Transmutation. That's going to be buffed up by the Skull of Cthulhu that can enhance spell mastery by a significant portion. Other than that, a Soul Grinder of Tzeentch here to do some long range poking. Mobility wise, a bunch of Centaurs of Tzeentch, and in the front, a line of Marauders of Tzeentch. On the center as well, actually, there's a followers of the Great Eagle Marauder Chariots Regiment Renowned version that has been added in the latest DLC. On the other side, for Anti-Kaiju's High Elves, a front line of Ship's Company, basically a staple of High Elf front line these days, since they're so cheap, with the Blades of Hoeth as a core on the infantry side, backed up by one single unit of Spear, and a bunch of Heralds of the Wind and Illyrian Reaver Archers for skirmishing fire. Single entity wise is a triple bird build. A couple Arcane Phoenixes, one of them the Omen of Assyrian, and leading the army is Ilario the Radiant, coming in with healing with Tempest, Earthblood, and Star of Avalon. That's it for the army builds, and now let's get the battle started. Right at the start of battle, Changeling transforms into Sea Lord Aislinn. I wonder if he's trying to use his Master of the Mist ability early. We shall see here. Soul Grinder of Tzeentch getting in position, probably can try to poke down the Illyrian Reaver Archers. That is an early activation of the Master of the Mist. It boosts the damage and range of the Flamer, so it actually reaches those Illyrian Reaver Archers, but they quickly scooted out of that range. And unfortunately, the Exalted Flamer doesn't have the reach on anything else. At least the Soul Grinder can start poking down at the Arcane Phoenix. Yeah, getting some damage done, but nothing too substantial, and the ability is already over, so a little bit of a shame. Most of that ability has been wasted, not quite able to get the damage value back. Anyways, the High Elves are just scooting over and trying to do some skirmishing work here onto the Tandagors, while the Soul Grinder continues to poke at the Arcane Phoenix. I'm gonna fast forward a bit here, as both sides are just kind of waiting for an engagement. Actually, wait, hold on. Omen of Assyrian diving down onto the Chaos Saucer of Tzeentch, trying to knock it out. However, immediately, Aislinn/Changeling pushes in, and followers of the Great Eagle are also moving in. At the back, the Illyrian Reaver Archers got caught by the Tandagors of Tzeentch, taking significant damage. A little bit of a slip in micro for sure, while the Tandagors charges in and surrounds the Omen of Assyrian, pulls back once again, and maybe trying to do some cycle charging, while the Arcane Phoenix dives down onto the Exalted Flamer, trying to knock out this devastating missile piece, as it can be a great threat to the Blades of Hoeth. Soul Grinder continues to snipe enemy single entities, this time onto Ilario the Radiant, and she doesn't have any abilities to mitigate that magical damage. The Shield Stone of Isha, yeah, she didn't bring it because it's useless with that physical resistance against the Tzeentch army. So yeah, it's gonna be Earthblood trying to get the lost HP back on all these single entities, as they're all taking quite a bit of damage, either in melee or at range. Looks like the Tandagors are trying to go after skirmishers at the back, while in the center, Sea Lord Aislinn is just duking it out against the Omen of Assyrian, but it seems like the Omen of Assyrian is not getting a lot of work done here. The Exalted Flamer is being driven back by those Ship's Company and Illyrian Reaver Archers, while the Arcane Phoenix decided the Exalted Flamer isn't the priority. Instead, double teaming Sea Lord Aislinn would be a better choice here, and you can see Sea Lord Aislinn is getting some damage from these double birds. Chaos Saucer of Tzeentch here activating Skull of Cthulhu, and you can see Ilario the Radiant getting hit by the 160% Final Transmutation upgraded version, and she is down to a quarter of her HP. And Earthblood was in earlier, trying to mitigate some of the incoming damage, barely hang on, as a Bolt of Change misses her. A little bit of a missed opportunity there, as the Tandagors could have just jumped onto Ilario the Radiant and kill her in melee earlier, or at least trapped her on the ground so something else can come and deal with her. Anyway, seems like Ilario the Radiant has stabilized her leadership and will be coming back, while Sea Lord Aislinn has transformed back into the Changeling. While the Changeling is a lot worse in melee, it does have the advantage of not being a mortal and can't be routed. While Changeling will take some crumbling damage, but it is still under the control of the player, instead of being routed and chased down by enemy mobility. Skarbrand was able to pull back Changeling while sending in those Tandagors to pin down the double Rainbow Birds. For the infantry-wise, the Ship's Company and the Blades of Hoeth has grind through most of the Marauders, but here comes the Exalted Flamer, who has been freed up from enemy melee threat and is now ripping a bloody hole onto, or a very burnt and crispy hole on the formations of these Ship's Companies and Blades of Hoeth. And in the center here, the followers of the Great Eagle somehow pinning down the Phoenixes once again, doing a lot of body blocking instead of running through infantry, while the Aislinn Reaver archers trying to threaten that Exalted Flamer, but being blocked by the Tzeentch of Tzeentch. On the far side, Lara the Radiant has dropped onto the ground, trying to stay away from the line of sight of the Soul Grinder. So instead, the Soul Grinder will be switching over to shoot at the double birds, the double rainbow pigeons, as they are in a bit of a trap here, being surrounded by the Tzeentch, but instead a fiery rebirth from the Arcane Phoenix from Omen of Asuryan here. A very lucky second win for Anti-Kaiju, keeping the Omen of Asuryan in the fight. Continues to terrorize those Tzeentch worshippers on the battlefield. The Ship's Company, though, once again being hit by the Exalted Flamer, taking significant damage, and the Changeling with his leadership stabilized, transforming back into Aislinn, who is a much more competent melee fighter, probably will be doing a lot more work in melee against the enemy army. Followers of Great Eagle not doing a whole lot of damage so far, getting some kills, but just kind of grinding through infantry. The High Elves are going on a hunt against the Tzeentch single entities, so the Kill Saucer of Battle getting involved personally here. Jumping in, trying to save the Exalted Flamer from the double rainbow pigeons. Changeling / Aislinn, though, taking hits from the Omen of Asuryan and getting dangerously low in both HP and leadership. Tzeentch doesn't have any recovery, so the Changeling is probably gonna go down soon. A final transmutation onto this High Elf blob. Alariel being the target, she can't avoid the damage, but she can avoid the damage on her other units. Retreating in time, most of the High Elf units didn't take much damage from the final transmutation and continues to fight on. Both sides are throwing everything they have into this fight. Tzeentch psycho charging, and the Kill Saucer of Tzeentch somehow getting some good damage done onto the Arcane Phoenix. Changeling / Aislinn is getting lower and lower, and the Blades of Hoeth, seeing this opportunity, tries to finish him off. They actually routed Changeling / Aislinn, and if Alara can do a bit of a follow-up, the High Elves can actually finish off the Tzeentch leadership. But there's still a very healthy Soul Grinder in the fight, and an Exalted Flamer burning through those High Elf troops. For the High Elves, it is down to the Arcane Phoenixes. Can they carry the game here? But looks like the regular Arcane Phoenix is also getting lower and lower, surrounded by a ton of Tzeentch and even the Soul Grinder jumping in. While on the far side, Lara the Radiant should be able to finish off Aislinn / Changeling in this one final hit, and she did. But there are the Tzeentch in range, charging in, and Alara instead has been routed, shattered, might even get finished off by those Tzeentch of Tzeentch. But one last Star of Avalon, though, healing those Blades of Hoeth, but Alara the Radiant has been slain, and that leaves both armies leaderless, and it's just the single entities trying to duke it out at this point. Double Phoenix's Omen of Asuryan is still fighting in a good fight. Arcane Phoenix is getting lower and lower. Can it get that burst heal? If they can get another fiery rebirth, that would be huge in this kind of late game scenario, but the Spears right now are fighting shoulder to shoulder with the Arcane Phoenixes, trying to provide that kind of last stand infantry support to the High Elf single entities. But a devastating shot from the Exalted Flamer, also the final shot from the Crumbling Demon, obliterating those Spears before it fades into the warp. It is getting tight now, pretty much just the single entities holding up that balance of horror for both sides. The Arcane Phoenix who had a little bit of a jank, well, the usual single entity shenanigans. Omen of Asuryan still being relatively healthy compared to the other Arcane Phoenix. Soul Grinder duking it out with surround from all these Blades of Hoeth, providing a very solid infantry support with armor piercing and magic attacks, and also a lot of very solid stats. Arcane Phoenix trying to snipe out that Kill Saucer, but here comes the Tzeentch. That might just be the end of the Arcane Phoenix here. But the High Elves are blessed by another fiery rebirth. A second burst heal, this time to the regular Arcane Phoenix, allows the High Elves to fight on with their single entities. However, the Rainbow Pigeons are not out of the woods yet, because the Tzeentch did get the charge on them, surrounding them and beating them down. Their magical attacks punch through that physical resistances on the Arcane Phoenixes, and they do have a very strong offensive profile. And this Omen of Asuryan is getting lower and lower. Final transmutation. That might just be the nail in the coffin, as the Omen of Asuryan down to the last 1000 HP with no healing available. The Tzeentch is charging in once again and should be able to finish off that Arcane Phoenix, the Omen of Asuryan. The other one is getting targeted by a Bolt of Change. Let's see if it drops, but nope. Army losses takes out the last of the High Elf units. GG to both Scarbrand and Anti-Kaiju for the very close battle, and big thanks to Scarbrand for sending in this very fun replay. For the army performances here, the Zandagors did a lot of good damage, surrounding the enemy single entities and bringing them down with those rear and cycle charging on the Arcane Phoenixes. Also, very nice work catching those Elarian Reaver Archers in melee combat as well. While the Soul Grinder and the rest of the single entities, Changeling / Aislinn didn't really do much, not even with the Master of the Mist, but that final transmutation with the Skull of Katam really drained down Alariel the Radiant from the Chaos Saucer, and even more final transmutations in the rest of the battle as well, draining down the rest of the single entities, plus the Soul Grinder poking down Alariel the Radiant, poking down the double Rainbow Pigeons, did some really solid stuff. While the Exalted Flamer not doing a whole lot of damage, mostly just thinning out the enemy numbers with 1,000 gold worth of damage value. It's not too bad, not too shabby. Marauders and the followers of the Great Eagle didn't do much in terms of value, but did enough to carry their own weight. While the High Elves there, Alara the Radiant and the Ship's Companies, none of them really earned back much value. The Blades of Hoeth tried their best, cutting through the enemy Marauders, cutting down a bunch of Zandagors stuck in melee, and even providing that very solid last stand infantry support for the Arcane Phoenixes to grind down the Soul Grinder. But unfortunately, the double Phoenixes didn't quite manage to bring this one back, especially not this Arcane Phoenix, struggling to take down even the Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch at the start of the battle there. Elarian Reavers unfortunately mismicroed a bit there and get caught by those Zandagors instead of kiting them down. That's why I would probably put on skirmish mode myself when I'm playing with these kind of skirmish cavalry. That takes a lot of micro, and sometimes you just can't keep up with everything going on the battlefield. Respect to those who doesn't though, because those are the real hardcore players. Anyways, that is it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed this very nice multiplayer action in the Tides of Torment. Once again, big thanks to Scarbrand for sending it in, and great game from Dr. Kaiju, Anti-Kaiju as well. If you want to see more multiplayer action, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.